My name is Sarah Patterson, and this is a 1968 Shelby Gt500Kr. This is car 8TO2R21597742208. This car was purchased originally it's a Texas car, and my father actually purchased the car around 1999, and it came out of the Southwest. It came out of Arizona. He had done a lot of research for many years. He wanted a Shelby, and he had looked at a lot of different cars before finally deciding on this one. And it had come into Ohio to be inspected. And I remember when he got it, the delivery took place in the middle of winter, and of course it was a Michigan winter, so the car hauler actually offloaded the car into the driveway, and it went into the garage, and there it sat. And I didn't know too much about the car. I remember, knowing that it was coming. I knew, a little bit about it. And I remember walking into the garage after it delivered. I'd gotten home from school, and I came in, and I remember seeing it, and I thought, wow. I thought that is something unique. That is something really special. And so, being an older car, it always needed a little thing here or there. And I was fortunate enough that my dad always allowed me to spend the time in the garage with him and help him work on the car. So over the years, we did have a good amount of time together, and eventually he had, we needed the fenders rolled. We were having issues with the tires, and so I put brand new tires on the car, and I was taking the car to a local friend who was going to hand roll the fenders for us. And on the way back from dropping it off, my father had me pull into the DMV, and I didn't realize he had the title with him. And he told me thank you for being a wonderful daughter. And at the DMV, we walked in, and he signed the car over to me. And so it's been with us ever since. And then recently, my husband and I decided we were going to have some work done to it. We knew it needed body work, and it needed some mechanical things gone through again. I'd had the heads rebuilt at one point, and we decided that it was time, and so we sent the car off to Legendary GT Continuation Cars in Pennsylvania, and we just recently got it back, and we've been enjoying it.
Well, Dave, Sarah and I, when we got together and I realized what this car was and what it meant to her and her father and really the family, it was clear to us that we had a really good friend, Barry Smith, who runs Legendary GT Classics out of Roaring Springs, Pennsylvania. He's a Shelby licensee. He does these for Shelby as well. But there was really no better person that I could find that could put a car together like this. This car had a history, like anything else that's lived through 52, almost 53 model years now of somebody else and their life with it. So let's just say that it had a little bit of history. It was never a rusty car. It was from Texas and Arizona, so it didn't have that piece of it, but it got bumped here and there and so forth, and it really wasn't repaired well in the 1980s. And so we looked at it and we said, boy, it'd be really nice to go through it at some point and maybe paint it and do things like that. And the engine, it was apart, and somebody had put cast pistons in it and some forged pistons, and it was just kind of a hodgepodge of 50 years of somebody. So when we took it to Barry, once you get to know Barry, you find out quickly that Barry doesn't do anything part way. It's either all or nothing. So he actually came and got the car because it was our dream. It was her dad's dream, it was her dream, and when we got together, it became my dream. To see this car as it is, quite frankly, we never dreamed it would be like this today. But that being said, we took it there, and Sarah, why don't you tell a little bit about when the car left the house. So you were there, and your parents came because they knew what was going to happen. Not like this, but they knew that it was kind of going to happen. And so Barry actually sent his truck and trailer to the house. So why don't you talk about that?
And they showed up, they picked up the car in the middle of December. So obviously Michigan, Pennsylvania, it was freezing cold, but it was important to me that my dad was the one to load the car up.
And so he came up, and they were able to get the car loaded. They had fun loading it and strapping it down, and it was amazing to see it. Obviously running in the middle of winter, because usually it would just get started up, but to get it out, get it loaded, and then Barry's crew, they took off with it, and that was it. It was amazing. We couldn't believe that it was on its way.
So that was in the middle of December last year. Okay, so it was right before Christmas, right before the holidays, and we got a couple pictures from Barry early January, and he said, well, we found a couple things, so we think we need to do a little bit more. And the next thing I know, we see pictures of this car without a single nut or bolt left on it. It's literally on a rotisserie as a bare shell. The quarter panels are cut off of it because they had been poorly done before, and he had brand new quarter panels that go clear up to the sail panel. They put those on, leaded them in, complete restoration of the wiring harness and the undercarriage, and you name it, it was happening. Every single nut and bolt. And if you look at that, each one of these fasteners is virtually redone, and the underside of the car looks much the same. So the rear end, the drive shaft, the transmission, all rebuilt. The engine didn't have the correct date-coded blocks, so now it does. It's got, trust me, they're all forged pistons in it now. It's got all the right intake and so forth. But Sarah and I had decided a long time ago that what we really wanted to do and dreamed of was to share this car with others. So we wanted to put it back together in such a way that we could drive it and enjoy it and share with other people like yourselves. And so that's kind of where the whole thing started. So we'll get into that part of it a little bit later, but it was like every single nut and bolt. And then Barry invited us to Roaring Springs, Pennsylvania, and to see the car and how it was progressing. So we went toward the end of February this year. And at that point in time, all the nuts and bolts were off. Every single piece was stripped, repainted, refurbished, ready to go. Any of the sins of the past were repaired, but it was basically a bunch of parts and a shell. Okay? And Sarah can talk a little bit about what happened when we got there and we, opened the door and the shell was sitting there. So tell Dave about that a little bit.
It was difficult to believe it was the same car. The amount of filler, like Gary had said, in the past where the repairs had been done, the amount of filler had distorted the body line. So to actually see the car with the curves and the piece of art that these cars are, it was absolutely incredible. As you walked into the shop, and the hood was hanging because it was still drying. The paint wasn't even completely set on it. So we walked in and to turn the corner and just see the body sitting there and the hood sitting there, and it was just amazing. And as Gary had also said, they had taken off all of the tiny little pieces and prepped them and coated them and repainted everything. And one of the things that we got a kick out of, and I had told Gary, I pointed to the hood springs, and I said, wow, I said, look at those. I said, and they're not as old as everyone probably thinks they are, because when my dad had got in the car, there were very, very heavyweight hood springs in it, and so the hood was a little bit ornery. And so one year for Christmas, after I got in the car, my parents had asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I told them I would like lighter weight hood springs. Well, Barry and the guys and Gary, they thought that was just the best thing ever. They're like, there's no way you asked for hood springs for the car for Christmas. And I told them, yeah, I actually asked for hood springs. And Dad had gone with us out to see the car, and he was able to confirm that for them. So Barry actually had me write my Christmas present, and then I put the year below it, and they took a picture of the hood springs sitting in the shop, because they thought it was, who asked for hood springs for Christmas?
So that was just fabulous. And really, what happened then is they went over each of the parts, and the drivetrain is all sitting there like in pieces on full display. And one of the things that was interesting is when we redid the engine, so it's got, you know, all the correct parts on it now, but we decided that we didn't want ordinary carburetors anymore. So if you look at this engine, it looks totally stock on the outside, but underneath that air cleaner and the S-tube and all the correct looking stuff is actually a Holly Sniper fuel injection system. So now when you turn the key, it starts. And it starts all the time, every time, and really it doesn't cause the orneriness problems that sometimes you had with, you know, carburetors. And one of the other things that Barry had suggested, and we actually did, was we took out the old hydraulic power steering, and we actually have electronic power steering in it now. But the rest of the components actually, you know, look the part and act the part and so forth. So, you know, that was really remarkable. And so we really went through the whole car, and we didn't expect that by that time everything would be already painted. So not only were all the individual parts painted, the body shell itself was painted. And he had all the old parts that you could see the sins of the past were stacked against the wall, so we could actually see what those looked like after they took them off. So it was a wonderful story of Barry and Rob and the team there, Tyson. Tyson spent probably the most time on this car, and he was fabulous. And the reason this car fits the way it does, if you look at the doors and the trunk lid and all the things that didn't line up from the factory in a 68, they do on this car. And that's because of the work that Tyson put into massaging each and every one of those parts to make sure that this car fit. So speaking of time, this car has nearly 1,600 hours into the restoration of it. So it's really, you know, the love of the car and everything that these guys did to make this car what it is today. And if it wasn't for, you know, Barry and our long friendship and the team at Legendary GT Classics, this wasn't going to happen. So we were able to see all those things at that time. And then we actually said, you know, we're going back and forth, and he continued to share pictures of the car and all those kind of things as it was going together. And as luck would have it, I'd planned to be in Michigan for some meetings with Ford and stuff, and then to celebrate Memorial Day with our family, because we still have family in Ohio and Michigan. So I'd planned to be there, and Barry said, well, when do you think you'll be there? So I told him. He said, all right, when's your plane land? So I told him, and let's just say it was around the 27th or so of May. And right after we got home to our home in Michigan, Barry showed up with his team and this car in a trailer as you see it today. It was done. 1,600 hours, lived through, you know, from the end of December through the holidays. We had a pandemic in the middle of it. Every excuse in the world why you wouldn't want to see this thing get done. And believe it or not, in 5.5 months, 1,600 hours, quite a few new parts, whole new drivetrain. This remarkable team at Legendary GT Classics put this car together. And we've been driving it. And we started driving it and enjoying it. And we've probably put 1,300 miles on it since the end of May. And today it'll probably go another 150 miles just today. So that'll be fun. But that's kind of, you know, that part of the story. And anything you'd like to add, honey?
It's just been incredible to see what it was and see what it's become, and the drivability of it's fantastic. It's unbelievable.
And then we were able to share it with some of the club members. So you're vice president of the Moxham Club, so Mustang Owners Club of Southeast Michigan, and a lot of the club members had seen this car over the years, and you know, Sarah had been working on the car and so forth, and we got to share it with them that same weekend as we first got it back. Yep. So why don't you tell Dave just briefly about that?
The club had been invited to do a drive-by in support of the healthcare first responders at Beaumont Hospital, Dearborn, and so they staged us at a local bank. And so I had told them I thought the car was going to be back, but I wasn't absolutely certain, knowing who knows what can always come up. And we were able to show up with it. And it was just amazing because there were a couple of friends, one friend who actually has a Mach 1 with a 428 as well, kind of like Gary's. And he had always helped me if I was going to be at a show or something like that, because like Gary had said, we put fuel injection in it because the carburetor was finicky, so to say. And Ken had always been awesome, making sure if I needed help with anything that he was there. My dad would always go with me too, so I always kind of had like a backup and support if I needed it. And Ken knew the car very well, and it was amazing to see him and his wife Kathy. So the first thing Ken did is he crawled under the back end of the car and he looked at the deck lid and he just went, wow. The body lines on it are just incredible, and the fit and finish of the car is, he even said, you know, it's better than when it came off the factory floor. And it's just been a pleasure to get to drive it and enjoy it and get it out there and do what it's meant to be done with it, to drive it.